Okay, getting ready to do a sort of a capacity test on this REPT 280. Battery's almost fully charged. Battery is about 3.6, so basically fully charged. What we're gonna do is a 30 amp discharge. I know people want 40, but we've already discussed this. 10 gauge cables. We're gonna keep it there, and we're gonna discharge it up to where it goes down to 2.5 volts. So anyway, let's go ahead and get this started. And there she goes. So we'll get this loaded up and show the results to you guys and see where we go from there. All right. Okay, guys, we're getting close to this being finished. And so far we have 290.6 for 296 amp hour capacity, 949 watt hours, and we are seeing 939. So 290 so far, and this. Now, while this test was running, Andy from Off Grid Garage had uploaded a video where he got some results, and we were running our capacity test while it was happening. So some of the things that I guess were questions that people maybe had in the comments. One of them was, why is the date here different than what's on the scan? So if you want to see the scan date, you look at the OCV 3-4 time, and if you scan this, you will see this is October 24th, 2022, because that's international date. The reason we have this there is that is the date where it gets sleeved and it gets its pallet and case ID. So that's when it's considered a final assembly. All lithium cells have a 30-day wait period after their test, and they do a final voltage measurement before they send it off. That's whether it's Tesla, Panasonic, that's how lithium batteries are made. You've got a 30 to 40 day wait period. Now, COVID can mess this up. If there's a shutdown in China, you could have another date. But you don't, the date that we have here is the date that we have the pallet ID and the case ID. Anyway, I think we're almost there. 291.4 so far. And right 942. So I think we're going to hit exactly the watt hour rating. And I'll explain how the amp hour rating is arrived. But I think the biggest issue with the way that Andy's testing them is that he's using those funky little alligator clips with bus bars, and we're using an actual lug. Another thing, we're testing this at 30 amps because this is 10 gauge wire, and 10 gauge wire should not be running more than 30 amps for accurate results. So that's one of the limitations of the ZKE. If it had 8 gauge wire, you could run 40 amps. But what's happening is, because of the way this test is, you are losing capacity to heat. And that is probably the reason why there's a discrepancy between what we're seeing and probably what Off Grid Garage is seeing. But we'll reach out to Average Joe, and I think he has a ZKE as well. So we're actually going to send him our leads, that way he doesn't have to cut his. But I highly recommend cutting those alligator clips off and just going with standard lugs. You're going to get much more accurate results, but keep the discharge at 30 because these wires are 10 gauge wires. You should not be running more than 30 amps through them. But anyway, we're at 2.79, so it's pretty much there. And we can sort of see that the graph of the curve is starting to come down. We're at 944 watt hours, so I think this is going to hit right on the money. But again, we are doing a 30 amp discharge versus the 40 due to the limitations of the ZKE tester. decent tester for the money, but it should not be doing 40 amp tests. They're going to be inaccurate. If they had made 8 gauge wire, you could potentially run it there, but because they have 10 gauge wire, you will be losing it. So, but like I said, I think we're almost there. 2.77. So 945 watt hours, and the label says 949. So I think we're going to be well in the 99% match to this. So again, we're at so far 292. So we'll see it now. I assume if even some of the grade Bs that were tested with these lugs, you'd probably get a higher reading on those as well. So not to dismiss that the grade B wouldn't also test higher. I do believe that if you had lugs and you were doing a 30 amp, you would be getting higher. However, what we're trying to do is say, what's the deal here? Why is it so different? So that's, I guess, what our test is going to explain. And I'll also explain what this means 3.2 as soon as this test is over. We're at 2.7. We're at 293.2 amp hours. So I'm just going to just keep letting this video run. So as we can, as it comes down, we can sort of see it. But I think the main thing to understand is that we get this value by dividing 949.2736 by 3.2. So if you divide 949.2736 by 3.2, you will get that. And even in the tests that you'll see, those averages were 3.23 volts. So the amp hour rating is 296 at 3.2 volts. If you are wanting to do 2.96 and you're measuring at 3.23 volts, well, then you're measuring at a different voltage from what the capacity is. Therefore, you take the watt hours divided by 3.2, and you're going to get pretty much very close to what the capacity rating is. Anyway, let's see where we are. We're at 293.8, 2.76 volts. So, yeah, not much left, I would say. Maybe another watt hour or so. This may actually even go a little higher than the label capacity. And I have seen that before, but it's usually only 1 or 2. So we'll sort of see what happens. But we're still at 2.7. Now we're down to 2.69. So I guess we can just keep this running, because like I said, any minute now it's going to go ahead and shut off. So 294, and we're at 296. So yeah, pretty close. So let's see what we get. And we're at 2.67 volts. So pretty much any second now, I would say, probably the next 5 to 10 seconds. So we're now down to 2.66, and our average voltage has come down a little bit, so 3.2. Now that's one thing I have noticed with the REPT cells. They're not as spicy as the LF280K cells, but everyone seems to focus on this capacity number, so I think this cell is going to be very good for people that just like high capacity numbers. But if you are more of a grunt, if you need power, I don't think you can really go wrong with the LF, 280, 304 series or the 280K. But like I said, everyone is sort of fixated on the capacity of it being 294, or as high as it possibly can. So that is something to look out for. And we're at 3.26 Okay, we actually exceeded the watt hour rating. So the watt hour rating is now 951. So we are actually above the watt hour rating of the listed label capacity. So maybe REPU is judging their cells slightly differently. I don't know, but we're at 295 amp hours. So let's sort of see what happens here. So we might actually hit amp hours exactly what the cell says. So yeah, very, very interesting to see this. Now, I want everyone to understand this is not guaranteed for every cell. Usually, we are only guaranteeing you 280, which is what the manufacturer says. And there's a honeymoon period with these cells when they're freshly made. So the cells that Andy tested had about a year of just sitting, and these have had less than 2 or 3 months. So there's a honeymoon period that sort of goes away within the first 6-7 months, and then it's sort of business as usual. So that can probably play into that. If you had tested these maybe a year later, probably wouldn't get what's on here. Probably would be getting maybe 8-9 amp hours low. All right, any minute now, I think we're basically going to be hitting low voltage cutoff. So we're at 2.53, so very shortly, and yeah, I'm finally able to end this video, and it's almost 2 o'clock, so we'll have to edit this, but we're at 2.5, 16, 14, 13, 12, and 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Off. Okay, wow. 296 amp hours exactly. So it almost matched exactly the label, and we actually went above listed capacity. We're at 954.21 watt hours. So I will get the data for this ready, and it will be on an updated video. You can check it out. So yeah, different setup can produce different results. But anyway, we'll send these results over to Andy, see what he thinks, and then we'll go from there. All right, thank you.